Hello, I'm Thomas Russell, and my topic was the effect of bilingualism on cultural identity. I interviewed someone who I will call Mark, who is a childhood friend's dad. I chose to interview him for this topic because he speaks four different languages and is not a native speaker of English. This gives him a different insight than that of my own. Even more so, he is a professor at CU Boulder, has a bachelor's in English, and an extensive amount of experience in the field of cultural and linguistic studies. I want to learn about how speaking multiple languages and moving around the world can affect or change your personal cultural identity, while also learning about the threat that global business languages have on smaller languages around the globe. Even more so, I want to learn about how we can prevent this threat. My presentation will give you an overview of the methods used, then provide an analysis of the information learned from the interview. So my interview took place on July 17th, 2024, and was done over phone call. It lasted about 1 hour, and a total of 10 questions were asked throughout that time period. During the interview, I learned more about Mark's background, asked questions related to the main theme, touching on the effect of raising his kids in a language other than his own, and the difficulties of connecting his kids with the culture of a place 5,000 miles away, as well as the risk of global business languages and what we can do to prevent it. I used multiple ethnographic research methods over the course of conducting and preparing for this interview. One obvious one would be the interview that this entire presentation is based on. And I used an interview because it gave me one-on-one time with someone who had a completely different experience in life and was also required. I also took field notes during the interview, and while doing outside research, this gave me an extensive amount of research and information to draw on for my analysis of the interview. Additionally, I learned to view things from his point of view as best I could. As stated in Chapter 2 of Tapestry of Culture by Maxime Wieskra, Abraham Rossman, and Paula G. Rebel, participation in another culture means learning how to view things from the insider's point of view. And for that, I thought that it was important that I kind of delved into and did a little bit of background research into Morocco and Arabic and all of the topics and cultures that we kind of touched on in our interview. Okay, so next up would be just I'll just show you the questions that I asked, even though I don't specifically go over every one of them, just so you have a background of what was asked. I went over these 10 questions. I'm not going to read them all because I feel that's unnecessary, but you can pause it and read it if you want to. Now, moving on, I'm just going to give a little bit of background info about my interviewee because I think some of it could be useful when I'm providing my analysis. So he speaks French, Arabic, Italian, and English. He grew up and lived in Morocco until he graduated college with a degree in English. He learned French and Arabic when he was growing up, although Arabic would be considered his native language, and he began learning English when he was 16. He then went on to learn Italian when he met his wife, who was Italian, so it just happened naturally. And his ethnicity would be a mix of Arab and Amazi, who are the original inhabitants of North Africa. He also raised his kids in English and Italian, not Arabic, which is his native language, and that's useful for a little bit of info that I touch on later on. Next up, we're going to actually get into the research, but before that, I want to just mention that a lot of this information will not be true for everyone, and bilingualism has a different effect on everyone, as each individual's experience will be different. I think that these are some very strong themes I've seen about bilingualism, but there will be, a lot of different things that people may say about bilingualism and multiculturalism. But regardless, based on Mark's experience, I want to come to some outcomes of my research. So I went into this research initially wondering whether or not becoming bilingual, moving around the globe, and experiencing many different cultures could reduce your connection to the culture of your home. What I found, however, shows that becoming bilingual can build upon your own cultural identity without having to lose the strong connection that you have to your home. When you learn a new language, move somewhere new, or experience new cultures, you are adding another layer upon your own cultural identity, as you are able to experience new media and new lifestyles, which inevitably rub off on you and become part of you, without taking away from your cultural identity. That's not to say that it isn't incredibly negative when introduced in colonialism and when forced upon societies. But when sought out naturally by someone, it has the ability to connect you with new people and cultures, and it can also and learning another language can also be seen as an escape or a gateway to a new life for some. So in Mark's instance, he saw English as a gateway to the outside world. It not only gave him the ability to consume and participate in Western media, but also provided him with the ability to move outside of Morocco and experience the world. It was a sense of freedom from French and Arabic, and he said that he gravitated towards language because they offered that escape. You can still keep a strong relationship with your native language and culture when you learn other languages or move away from home, particularly because of the power of globalization. Mark said that he is not only able to go back to Morocco once every 2 years, but he is also able to easily access Moroccan and Arabic media. On top of that, culture, language, and your home aren't just ideas or places, they're people, and you can connect to your home by interacting with them regardless of where you are in the world. Mark said that this is especially true when he visits Italy, the home of his wife, where he is able to connect with many Moroccans, as Italy has a large Moroccan population. Mark's experience seems to support the salad bowl theory, in which Mohamed Bure writes, "The salad bowl theory maintains the unique identities of individuals that would otherwise be lost to assimilation. The immediate advantage of the salad bowl theory is that it acknowledges the discrete identities and cultural differences of a multicultural society. Given Mark's experience of moving around the globe while retaining his own cultural identity, regardless of where he lives, supports the idea that cultures don't have to assimilate, but can build off of each other without erasing the practices and cultures of individual societies." Okay, so that's kind of the first point that I reached in my research. But another one that I touched on a little bit more briefly, but nonetheless, is how is raising your kids affected by bilingualism? So raising your kids when you are bilingual and or your partner is bilingual, it can make things complicated, as you may have a different native language than your partner, or you may live in a different place than your home where that language is spoken, and you may have difficulties connecting your children to the culture of your home because of that. In Mark's instance, this is a very specific situation, but I think it can be used to kind of explain what happens to people regardless in this situation. And but he was learning Italian when he was raising his kids, which is the native language of his wife, and he also was living in Switzerland and then later America while raising his children. So it was hard to balance. It was not only hard to balance learning a language with teaching one, but also trying to introduce Moroccan culture. And because he was learning, a language at that time, he felt that it was easier that he just learned it with his children, and then that just became the natural language. But he does say that he ended up feeling that he wished he connected his kids more with Arabic and Moroccan culture, and he regrets being unable to teach them Arabic, as Italian ended up naturally becoming the language of the household. Still, he says there are ways to connect them, particularly with food, especially or everyone's experience will be different in this regard. However, balancing cultural beliefs in a household is something that is not easy for everyone. Alrighty, so on to the next point I researched, which is how are global business languages affecting smaller languages. From information gathered from Mark and other sources, it seems that global business languages have positive and negative effects on the world. Two examples of them would be English and Mandarin. Those are basically the two global business languages, although there are other languages that are very big in that regard. But some pros that come with global business languages would be the connection they give, as people are able to connect with others all across the globe from completely different cultures when there's one language that at least a lot of people speak. And they also provide a strong global economic benefit, as that same connection is able to bring together people from different businesses all over the globe. And this is a benefit and a negative, but it provides a gateway for people in some less developed countries to escape and move somewhere that could provide a better life. And as I said, this one's kind of a positive or a negative, and I'll touch on that a little bit more later on. But to start the cons, one con having to do with global business languages would be the risk they pose to smaller languages. As stated by Mark, global business languages are a blessing. However, as they grow, more and more people will gravitate towards them and lose sight of their local languages. Global business languages also have a tendency to mesh themselves into local languages as popular media finds its way into all parts of the world, and is shown specifically in Europe, where places like the Netherlands have English as a national language, and many other languages within Europe have meshed English words into their dialects because of the strong exterior influence. This poses the strongest risk for smaller languages which do not have the influence or funding to prevent global languages like English from taking over. This whole problem is made worse by the increasing requirement of learning Mandarin or English for people who live in less developed countries, as it can be seen as the only gateway to what could be a better life, as I stated previously. Suppressing the use of their native and local languages and dialects can be something that happens when you seek after learning a new language and it becomes a primary aspect of your life because it's your only way to maybe get a specific job or move to a specific place. And while all languages can be affected, or let me rephrase that a little bit. All languages can be affected, however, even those that aren't small, as Moroccan Arabic, for example, may not be at risk of extinction, as it has always been a combination of words from many languages. It can still lose its independence as English seeps more and more into the language, regardless of the dynamic nature that it holds. So finally, on to my last point. I'm going to talk about how we can prevent language loss based off of some stuff that Mark said. So for one, learn another language. That is a very strong way in which you can fight language loss, as it increases language spread, which is its primary source of life and growth. You can be open to media from cultures different than your own. This allows you with an entire new gateway to views that you might not have been aware of before. But more importantly than anything, we should encourage bilingualism earlier in education, even though this can't be done by a specific individual person. As a society, we must introduce language earlier, because by the time the language is forced on you, at least in the United States, is in high school, and by then you have so much else going on that learning another language seems cumbersome. If you introduce it earlier on, then it becomes much easier, as by the time you're entering high school, you would have already had quite a bit of experience with the language you're trying to learn and may already even be fluent in it. This not only helps prevent language loss, but also has many cognitive benefits, as noted by Jinji Chen and Amato and Padilla in a meta-analysis, Adascope et al., or in a meta. It's a little bit confusing on that, but I'll just start that a study found evidence to support the cognitive beneficial effects of bilingualism include higher levels of attentional control, working memory, and abstract representation skills. So overall, I want to leave you with just a few specific points that kind of stand out to me, and I want you to remember. One, being bilingual does not take away from your cultural identity, it adds to it. Two, there's never a perfect balance when raising children if both partners identify with different cultures and speak different native languages, and how that ends up looking for everyone may be different. Global business languages present somewhat of a requirement, as people in less developed countries see English as a gateway to what could be a better life, and try to learn another language, as well as keep in mind that encouraging bilingualism earlier in education is something that would be good to be supported in the U.S. And yeah, so thank you for listening to my presentation. I hope you enjoyed it and hope that you learned some useful stuff. Here's my works cited, but other than that, thank you.